course.
Today we have Cassandra Springs with us, and so excited to chat today. So, Cassandra, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you started dancing, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, of course. So I currently live in Atlanta, but I grew up in North Carolina in Charlotte. I grew up dancing at a competitive dance studio, learned everything from ballet to hip hop, jazz, contemporary, all of that in between. And then graduated college and went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro and got my K through 12 dance licensure to teach dance in public schools. And then I also did some performing after school, which I was really fortunate to be able to dance with a company that was located in Wilmington, North Carolina, the same place that I got my first teaching job after school. So I danced with a musical theater company there for 2 years, all the while, still building my teaching resume, not only at the school, but also through guest teaching opportunities, which later led to me starting my own business, Elite DanceWerks, where I travel and do choreography for dance teams in studios. And so after I left Wilmington, I taught in Durham for a little while and ended up in Raleigh at a performing arts high school for 4 years. Loved it there and just wanted a change of scenery. Me and my husband, we've never lived outside of North Carolina. We knew that the dance industry in Atlanta was booming. The entertainment industry as a whole is booming. We're both entrepreneurs and wanted to grow our businesses. So before we got married, we moved to Atlanta last July. I will actually be celebrating our 1 year anniversary on Tuesday. So we've been in Atlanta for about a year. I started my new teaching job at Heritage High School, which is a performing arts high school in Conyers, Georgia, back in March, 3 weeks before quarantine. So that was an interesting transition. Definitely my most interesting transition to a new school. But I'm there now, and we're still virtual this semester and making it work along with running my business.
That is so awesome. You have such an awesome resume. I
Oh,
love
thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And you really are, I mean, you are killing it at teaching. You are doing
Thank
so great.
you.
And I love following your Instagram because you give behind the scenes of teaching and you share tips often. And it's so helpful. And it really seems like we're trying to be all in this together. And so you're giving such great tips and advice for other teachers. So thank you for
Yeah, thank you. And I think your platform is amazing too, because there's just not a whole lot out there for dance teachers, whether you're teaching at a studio, whether you're teaching in the public schools, there's just not a whole lot of resources. So to connect with someone like you who's like-minded and really wanting to put the spotlight on that part of dance, because, as dance teachers, we're all about the students, but sometimes we need help too. So it's really awesome that you have this opportunity and this platform to share kind of things from a teacher perspective as well.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. It is kind of like once you become a teacher, sometimes it ends there. And we really have
Mhm.
to realize like we have to be a lifelong learner so we can be the best teachers for our students. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, you're here to share with us tonight something really exciting, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So, you're going to share with us 8 tips for students on
Yes.
how to take class. And yes, this is such a great topic because students really need this now. So,
Yeah, for sure. So on my Instagram, you mentioned my teacher posts. I started a series called The Eight Counts for Success. And sometimes the posts are student centered and sometimes they are teacher centered. I really just go based on, what's on my heart at the moment. But this particular post was about effective class taking tips for students. And so each week I post 8 different tips in a different or for a different demographic. So like I said, whether it's students or dance educators. So yeah, in the virtual space, a lot of things are different as far as class etiquette, but there is a lot of overlap. So the first tip that I have is to know when to ask questions or ask questions appropriately. Um, as a dance student, I know I have high expectations for my students. I'm expecting them to take ownership of their own dance education. teaching dance is a collaborative exchange, right? So we give the students the tools to succeed, and then they have to take that material and then turn it into something amazing, right? So naturally, in doing so, when you're teaching, questions are going to arise. But you need to know when is the right time to ask those questions. So a good dance student, I always say, is an awesome observer and listener first. And so make sure you're taking the time as a student to absorb the material before you ask a question. Your teacher is never just going to teach something once or show you something once, demonstrate something once, and then move on. Okay? So try to watch whatever concept they're teaching at least 3 times before you ask a question. And then also make sure when your classmates are asking questions, you're tuning in, you're paying attention, because you can gather so much information from them in that moment. And teachers always check for understanding. You know, they'll ask follow-up questions. They may have a segment in their class that's specifically for questions. They may outline at the beginning of class, you know, I'm going to teach this much, and then we'll have a section at the end or whenever for questions. So just make sure you're paying attention to those cues as well, because each teacher, although at the core our passion and, you know, what we love to do is the same, some of those procedural things may be a little bit different. So just make sure that you're paying attention as a student of what that teacher particularly wants from you.
Yes, such a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. My second tip is to watch your devices. Make sure those cell phones are turned off. We are so plugged in the 21st century, and, you know, making sure that, you know, we're keeping up with all of our notifications and Instagram's going and Twitter. And while all that is fabulous in the dance environment, it can be so distracting. And in the virtual dance environment, you already have the natural distractions of your environment. You know, you've got your dog, you may have children if you're an adult student, or you may have siblings, you know, running around. So you want to limit those distractions. Make sure those phones are silenced. And then if there is some kind of emergency situation, you need to make sure as a student you are responsible and you communicate that to your teacher before class starts, so that if you need to step away for any reason, they're already on alert and aware of what that is. And also making sure that you're not checking your phone in class. Like, we are so, I get phantom alerts sometimes. I feel like my phone's going off or buzzing in my pocket, and you may feel like you hear it in the middle of class, but if it's silenced, then you've already, you know, taken care of that issue. But you just don't want to distract other students by taking that time away. And it's just plain rude, too, like to step away while your teacher's instructing, or you're a student maybe demonstrating something. So just take that time in class to invest in yourself and not worry about your phone. That's like an hour or 2 hours that you don't have to worry about those notifications. You don't have to worry about what's going on Instagram, the latest drama. If you're a true dance student and you're there to dance and you're there to improve. So you won't worry about that phone.
Yeah, and you need to be all in. As a
Exactly.
you need to commit to that 1 hour, 2 hours, however long it is. And a lot of times I feel like even as adults we'll go, oh, let me just check this one text. And
Mm-hmm.
that one text turns into a whole conversation and you're completely distracted. And it
So
takes
true.
one reason that we warm up as dancers is not only to get our bodies warm, but also to get our minds ready for
Exactly.
class. And then the second you check something, you snap out of it. So that's such a great tip.
Yeah, that is so true. And I even have to check myself as a teacher. Like, a lot of us use our phones for music or whatever. I like to use my laptop for that reason, so I'm not checking my phone. But yeah, you just have to check yourself. And if you're asking your students to do something, you want to make sure you're modeling that as well. So.
To have it. Yes, great.
Yeah. Number 3 is know when to take water breaks. Okay, so this differs for every teacher. Some teachers will be like, you know, if I'm working with a student on the side, you can get water, but you need to make sure that you're clear on that. So that's something that you can ask at the beginning of class before class starts, just to be polite. Because not every teacher is going to go through a list of rules at the beginning of class. Some of these things are just, you know, understood, and they're expecting you as a professional dance student to come in and, you know it already. Always the rule of thumb is to wait until you're told to get water. The water breaks are not a time to check your phone. Like I said, this can be tricky, but if you have to especially if you have to physically leave the space to get water, like there's a water fountain or you didn't bring a water bottle or something, then it's going to be distracting again, just like the phones. So just make sure that you're asking those questions. Generally, it's okay to get water while another group performs, like if you learn a combo and break down the steps, um, or something, and you go in groups, then generally it's okay to get water then. But just it's always great to ask and know how that teacher is wanting you to do that procedure. And then if your teacher is demonstrating or instructing or asking a classmate to demonstrate, that is not a good time to get water because they're wanting you to see a specific concept and a skill, and that skill is going to help to push you forward and improve you. So just wait for the breaks and wait for groups is the general rule of thumb.
That's great. And you're so
Yeah.
right. Every teacher is totally different. So I
Hmm.
love how you included like I feel like the majority of teachers don't really mind if you have
Hmm.
a water bottle, but you pointed out the times that you need to do that. But some
Yeah,
teachers are absolutely, you will not get water unless it's if it's a ballet class, between bar and center, or you will not get water until afterwards. So that's a really good
exactly.
thing to just remember and be aware of.
And I would also say be careful about asking for water too excessively. If something physically is wrong with you and you need to get water and it's an emergency situation, obviously ask, but just be aware of that question. It can get a little like aggravating to your teacher, honestly. And yeah, just be careful with that.
Yeah. You. Such a great point. Yes.
Uh-huh. Number 4, we're halfway through. Understanding spatial awareness. So, in a regular dance setting, generally your classes will be anywhere from 10 to sometimes if you're in like a convention, it could be like 100 kids in the same space. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing your space and respecting others as well. Um, Nothing is worse being in class next to someone who doesn't have spatial awareness. So you want to consider yourself, I always call it a ballet box, like you have your own little ballet box around yourself, or some people call it a dance bubble. You want to make sure that you're dancing in your own dance bubble. And also something that I use in my classes is windows. A lot of teachers use this, where you're not directly standing behind someone in front of you. You're kind of off of their shoulder, either to the right or to the left. And that way everyone has a clear sight line to either themselves in the mirror or the dance teacher. A lot of times teachers will rotate you throughout class, which is great. So you don't get stuck on one side of the classroom or you don't get stuck in the back or the front. They'll move you around the classroom so that you get a different it's just different. Like sometimes we get stuck in our comfort zone in class, and it allows you to experience class in a different way when you're standing somewhere different. It also may challenge you if you're in the front. Like, okay, now that I'm in the front, I have more of a pressure that I need to know what I'm doing. I need to make sure that I'm showing up and doing my best. Whereas if you're in the back, sometimes you let yourself off the hook a little bit. It's just a different class experience. So know your spatial awareness. Generally, I tell my students put their arms out in a T position, swing side to side. If you're hitting someone else, you may need to move a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. At home, it's important that you create your own dance space that is conducive to the type of movement that you are doing. Now, we don't always have the luxury of moving things out of the way or moving furniture, but you need to know how you can work your space to your advantage. And a lot of teachers are really great at adapting their movement for the virtual environment so you're not going to be bumping into things. Or I did an improv exercise with my students the other day, and I told them, like, make your dresser a part of your dance. Like, lean into your dresser, push away from your dresser. So just know that the limitations at home that you may think are limitations are not always limitations when it comes to space and spatial awareness. So, yeah.
And it really is, it takes it back to the student being responsible for their
Hmm.
own experience. It really,
Absolutely.
and one thing that students need to show their teachers is that they, like we said before, they're in it,
Yeah,
they're ready to be the best dancer that they can be. So
exactly.
it's even though we might feel comfortable on the left side of the dance studio, just really try different space options. And
Mhm.
I think especially going across the floor, one
Yes.
thing that frustrates dance teachers so much is when it's a group's turn to go across the floor and they're
Hmm.
all jumbled together.
Yes.
Right. And they've had time to get into space. And so using those windows, like you talked about, and using your spatial awareness with your arms, getting into space, that could really affect your performance in your class. So,
Yeah. I mean, it turns into a safety issue at the end of the day. It's not like your teacher's not harping on you. Like, you have to spread out so you don't physically injure someone else or yourself. But yeah, the across the floor thing can get pretty aggravating. Like, why do y'all want to dance on top of each other?
right. Yes. Yes.
I don't understand.
Yes. And it really, I mean, it does get better as the students do get a little bit older, but sometimes
Yeah.
they're not aware, they can still jumble together. So I
Hmm.
really like that, being aware of your space.
Or everyone wants to rush the front for some reason, or hug the mirror.
Yep. Uh-huh. They all have their own little thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Number 5, bring the right supplies. So you have to be prepared when you come to class. A lot of times this involves your dance attire, the shoes that you're wearing. You want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately for the class that you're taking. A leotard and tights may not be acceptable for your hip hop class, and baggy shorts or sweatpants and a t-shirt may not be acceptable for ballet. So it's important that you are aware of what those norms are. And if you don't know what those norms are, you need to contact the organization or the studio that you are taking class from, if it's not your regular class, and see exactly what they expect you to wear for class. Also, packing things like a little first aid kit. You can get a little small one from CVS or Walgreens that has Band-Aids and, antiseptic wipes or whatever you need, any kind of wrap. If you know that you have a reoccurring injury, something that maybe has bugged you over the years, you want to make sure you have your braces and maybe some icy hot or something like that readily available. Also, healthy snacks if you know it's going to be a long day, or having your lunch, a healthy lunch ready to go. Making sure you have those tools that are going to help you to succeed and help you to have the energy that you need to continue your dance practice that day. Water is essential. Anything like muscle rollers or TheraBands, any kind of personal hygiene materials that you want to have with you, things for your hair. Um, Deodorant is essential. And extra dance clothes too, if you know it's going to be a long day or a long rehearsal.
So about what you said about the clothing, making sure that if you do have a specific outfit that you're supposed to wear for your dance class, making sure that it's clean and ready to
Yes,
go. And checking
yes.
frequently, if I used a couple of band-aids last week, well, I need to put those back in. And I feel like snacks are a big thing, even for me, because you never
Hmm.
know when hunger's going to hit or when you need
Oh,
just like something,
it's so true.
or trail mix or something. So,
And
yeah.
you're on the move all day and you don't even realize how much energy you're exerting. So just to have like a protein bar or something really quick that you can grab, or even just a piece of fruit, is better than nothing at all.
Right. Yeah.
We're on tip number 7. So be open to new concepts and challenges. This is something that I noticed a lot when I started guest teaching. Dance is so vast, like so vast. And there's a lot of terms in dance that are mean the same thing, but they may be applied differently, or, for example, I call a calypso where your front leg is straight, your back leg's in attitude, it's a turning leap. I call that a calypso. I've been to places where they call it a barrel, a arch leap, There's all kinds of things. And you need to be open and prepared that some things may be called something different. I think the worst thing that happens is when I teach in those settings and I call it something else, and a student is like, it's not called that. My dance teacher didn't tell me it was, or they say something like that. And I'm just like, I have to go through my whole thing. Dance is vast. There's so many things. So just be open to new concepts, or maybe a new approach to something that you already know how to do. There could be that one teacher that says something that your teacher has said to you a million times, but they present it in a new way. They give you some kind of new imagery or something to help you apply that concept and better do that concept, and just pushes you forward. And some light bulb goes off, and you're a new dancer that day. So just be open. There's also, I think, a big shift for me personally in my own dance education was when I went to college and I took modern for the first time. Coming up as a comp kid, we were doing contemporary, we were doing, lyrical, but I had never taken a modern class where you're literally in and out of the floor. You're on the floor for 45 minutes. So you just have to expand your mind. And at the time, I was like, I don't know what this is, Mom. I don't know if I wasted your money coming to college. I'm taking modern class. This is weird. I don't know what's happening. But in hindsight, my modern classes helped me move in and out of the floor so much better. My transitions became smoother. I'm a better dancer because I opened my mind and I was open to that. So just be aware of that. Even if in the moment you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? You're going to apply it somewhere later down the road. You're going to be doing something in your dance career and be like, I'm so glad I took that class. I'm so glad I listened to that teacher. So just be open, expand your mind, and just try it. Literally, just try it.
I am nodding my head so hard because it's this right now. I mean, honestly, we could have talked like an hour about just this.
Yeah.
And this is something that I tell my students as well. And
Mhm.
I think it's so important for students to be adaptable.
Mhm.
And on top of that, to take from different teachers so that they go,
Yeah.
well, this teacher says calypso and this teacher calls it barrel. And I actually call it coupe jeté,
Mhm.
and with the back leg bent. So just, you're right. It's the same exact thing, except different people call it different things. And that's
Mhm.
because we've all had different training. There's
Yes.
so many different schools of training, and that is totally fine. And even just within the own technique, like how you do a pirouette.
Yes.
And for my pirouette prep, I go from two bent legs with the weight
Mhm.
in the middle.
Mhm.
But I know that a lot of people, they put their weight over the front leg.
Mhm.
And there's just so many different ways of doing a pirouette, of doing a correct pirouette.
Yes.
I think it's important for students to go, okay, so what does this teacher want? Or what? And for them not to say, well,
Yeah.
my teacher said, well, you know what? This is a new teacher. This is a new way of doing things. Adapt. And even
Exactly.
ways to like go across the floor. I mean, different teachers do it different ways. You're not,
True.
and they might do it a different way each week. Like I
Mhm.
know that some teachers, they go, everyone does it to the right, and then everyone does it to the left. And then some teachers, you do it to the right 5 different times until the teacher is satisfied, and then you go to the left.
Yep.
So that is so important. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. Be adaptable. And down the road, when you're taking your first modern class, or you have a teacher that presents something totally wild that you've never heard of before, your brain has been trained to go, all right, let's do this. How am I going to do it?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yes. And the adaptability piece is so key, because whether you decide to be a dancer, later in your career or not, you're going to have to adapt in life, period.
Right.
Like, dance skills teach so many life skills, and it's so awesome to see that overlap and how it affects kids. Um, but especially if you are a dancer, you're going to have to be so adaptable on sets. in productions, all kinds of things. So it all is for a purpose. You know, we don't just say these things just because. Everything we tell you and these tips that we give you are intentional and for your overall growth, whether you choose a dance path or not.
Yeah. So great. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Last tip. We made it.
Yay! You've been
All
great.
right. Yeah, thank you. So know when to mark, observe, and review. This is key. So we know marking is just when we go through the steps, but we don't give it our fullest energy, but we're marking, maybe marking for timing. You can mark for movement quality. You can mark for sequencing. So to know the order of the steps, to know the timing of the steps, and to know how the steps need to be executed in a movement quality perspective. And then we know observing, what observing is, and then reviewing is just going over what you know. So when the teacher is demonstrating or dancing full out, you should be also. Okay? Nothing is worse than you being up there giving your all and you got the kids standing cross armed in the back just watching. Okay? If I'm up there demonstrating a skill, especially this happens a lot when you have to go to the floor. Like, all right, let's roll to the floor and everybody's still standing. The reason we're doing it full out is not only to show you what it looks like, but also to make sure that you have a level of awareness of how to transition in and out of that skill safely. And so if you do it with us, then we can help to guide you through that a little bit better. And you're building your muscle memory. You're building, you know, that skill set to help you be successful with whatever it is. So during small groups, like if a teacher breaks you up into group 1, group 2, group 3, whatever it is, you should be reviewing the choreography on the side unless your teacher says otherwise. Okay? There are those times in class where your teacher will be like, I want you to watch this group. Okay? This group is doing such and such really well. I want you to watch and learn. Or I want you to watch all of the groups. This is the last time we're going through the choreography. Or maybe it's not even the last time. This is the third time. And maybe the energy in the class is low and they want you to encourage each other or whatever it is. Unless the teacher is telling you stop and watch, you need to be reviewing so you're ready when you go out there and you can put your best foot forward. It's also good to review on the side after you've gone in a group because maybe there's something that you flubbed on or something you forgot or maybe you turned the wrong direction or something. You could be correcting that skill for yourself. And that's part of that taking responsibility of your own dance education piece that you have to do to push yourself forward. You know, 95% of it is going to be your teacher telling you, this is what you're doing. Okay? That other little 5% or however you want to break it down into percentages is going to be you. Like, that's a huge piece. So when a teacher gives you a few minutes to review on your own or with a classmate, this is not a break, okay? A lot of times I'll say, okay, we're going to spend like 5 minutes. I want you to go over that skill because sometimes you just need to walk through it yourself. Like your teacher can go over it a million times, or sometimes if it's a peer-to-peer thing where you're working with another classmate, sometimes your classmate will put it in a way that your teacher didn't say it, and it'll help you to get it better. Like, okay, girl, we're actually supposed to go down on 4. Just make sure you have that little 8 count, or that and count in there. You know, they may explain it in a way that makes more sense to you. So don't use that time, that review time, as a break to go get water or check your phone, okay? And then if a teacher is asking you to observe them or another student, do not mark along with them unless they tell you to, okay? So sometimes the tendency is we just want to get it, and we understand as teachers that you just want to get it. Like you want to make sure you have it. But if I'm saying I want you to watch, then that means I really want you to observe and be observant. I may say watch for clarity. I may say watch for movement quality, right? I want you to zero in on that concept so that you can see exactly how I want it to be executed, and then you can put it into practice. And then lastly, observation just helps you to process the timing, the sequencing, the movement quality, and the nuances. So be an active listener and watcher.
Yes. And all of those things make for such a great, well-rounded student.
Yes.
And you're right. Sometimes the student really does, especially if the teacher is doing it, the
Hmm.
student needs to roll to the ground, do it full out.
Hmm.
And then there are times where you really do learn by just watching.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times too, the student will need to just process it by themselves. Like,
Hmm.
okay, well, what was this? And then suddenly it clicks when they just have a few minutes or a few seconds, few minutes to themselves.
For
So
sure.
yeah, such a great tip. Well,
Hmm.
Cassandra, these are so awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for sharing them. I hope
Sure.
students can hear these and really apply them and become the best student that they can possibly become. So,
Yes, I'm confident that they will. Sometimes you just need a little push and a little reminder, especially we've all been at home for so long, and the transition back into in-person learning, although it's exciting, sometimes we just need little reminders, right? So just brush up on your etiquette, and you guys are going to be fine. I have full confidence. You'll be as amazing as you want to be.
yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yes.
And Cassandra, where can people find you on Instagram and things like that?
Yeah, so my personal page is Cassandra P. Springs. And there I post more dance educator specific content. Also, I show a lot of the behind the scenes of my teaching experience, both through my business and teaching in a public school. And then my business page is at Elite DanceWerks. It's WERKS. You can find information on my website, on my Instagram page as well. If you want to book me for masterclasses in choreography, I would love to work with you and maybe share some more 8 counts with success or for success with you as well.
Thank you. You are so talented. And like I
Oh,
said,
thank
I love
you.
following you on Instagram. It's so insightful and really great. So
Thank you so much. I was so happy to do this with you.